Hi, I'm Future Alicia. Welcome to another episode of Crypto Native. Today I talk to Jackson Dame, who is one of my favorite follows on Twitter. You might have seen him as Dame.eth. We talk about how Jackson landed a role in crypto as someone who is not technical, and his role at Rainbow, his passion for creating content in the space. We go deep on wallet diving and NFTs like the Mooncats project. I had so much fun talking to Jackson. I hope you enjoy the conversation. If you want to support the podcast, you can hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear your comments, and you can always find me on Twitter at Future Alicia. Thanks for watching. Hi, Jackson. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm so excited because the first time I came across your Twitter was with your, I think, how to get a job in crypto Twitter thread. And Twitter threads are turning out to be maybe the most useful resource in the world in terms of just maybe an education that you don't get anywhere else.
Yes, totally. I agree.
And so I wonder if maybe, because something that people often talk about in crypto is, how to get a job as a developer and what that looks like. And obviously there is such a technical foundation in crypto with developers being the originators of protocols.
That's right.
But obviously there's this whole other component and, a huge portion of people who are non-technical and maybe just don't know how to get into the space. They might be kind of mildly interested or, very interested, but, you really don't know what to do once you're interested. And even maybe once you've played around. So can we maybe just run through some of the ideas that you had? Because I think they're so wonderful. And they totally resonated with me.
Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like first of all, like I agree with you. Like a lot of the people in this space are naturally like technically minded because that's how it all started. Like it makes sense that that is the origination point for it all. And I think like one of the reasons why we're now seeing non-technical people come into it is this sort of this realization that like the technical side of it can only get these projects so far. Like there has to, if you want mainstream adoption, there has to be like stuff and communication and content and all this other stuff to help bridge that technical gap that exists. And so when I started like thinking about getting into the space myself, I come from a marketing background and like a content creation background. I'm not a developer or a coder or anything like that. Um, but when I started thinking about it, I really thought about it from the perspective of, okay, I from observing this space, I've noticed that there is a lack of the skill set that I have. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's developers, there's all this kind of stuff, but there's fewer content creators and marketers that really can sort of like be in both worlds at the same time. And so I really took like when I thought about it from my career perspective, I really thought of it and saw it as like a competitive advantage in terms of there's a need for the kind of stuff that I can do. And it might be a little hard for me to get in initially because everyone in there is typically a developer or something. But if I can somehow find a way in, I feel like it's going to be really great for me. And so far, that's what I found out to be true. And I think there is sort of a hurdle initially because you do have to go through some. It's not as easy, I feel like, as jumping into some industries because you definitely initially have to sort of wade through some more technical stuff, or at least
Mm-hmm.
be willing to talk to people that are more technically minded. So like
Yeah.
the team that I'm working on now, there's only seven of us, and the other six people on the team, they're all like developers or at least people that have like a technical background. And so I had to very much be willing to like get outside my comfort zone and readily acknowledge to people that I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of strength in that. And I think, especially in terms of your role as a content creator, um, how valuable that is to just acknowledge like what you know and what you don't know. And then, I think you're so wonderful at passing on your learnings and what your experience is, because I think this is another fear of maybe non-technical people in the space is that you're just meant to get it. And that, and that maybe if you don't hear about people asking the questions, then you don't know
Yes.
that they ever get asked. And so, um, yeah, you can kind of like nod and smile when people say Merkle tree, but I have no I have no idea, and I don't know if I ever will. I don't know that this is like a time issue or it's just a me
Right.
issue. But then in saying that, I could maybe talk about like you said, marketing or content in a way that maybe a developer will never understand, and they also don't have to. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
found that to be really true. Like even since joining Rainbow, like I even from my perspective coming into that team, I sort of forgot that whereas I look at a developer and I'm like, oh man, this person has so many skills and knowledge that I just have no idea about. I tend to forget that like when I step into that environment, those developers are then looking at me and they're like, oh, this person has all this like creative and writing, talent and skill that like I don't even know how to like
Hmm.
accurately and like compellingly talk about this stuff to normal people. And so I do think that is something to like be aware of. Like if you are interested in getting into the space and you're not technical, like don't sell yourself too short because you will have a lot of skills that we honestly like in the space need in order to move us in the right direction. Like there's a lot of needs, and from what I've seen, there's not enough people here to fill them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, how did kind of you throwing yourself into the space, particularly over the last few months, to you landing a job in the space, like how did that go? And what
Yeah.
was that experience like? I can't imagine that was like any typical hiring experience that you've ever been through.
Yeah, definitely very different than a normal hiring experience. I mean, to sort of get in a nutshell, I mean, I think it was back in January of this year that I really started to actively participate in the ecosystem. So like I got my first Ethereum wallet. I started getting some cryptocurrencies and sort of like just honestly just playing around. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm one of those people that learns best by doing and failing, and I
Hmm.
did exactly that. Like I've lost money doing it. Like I mean, not like large sums of money, but like even simple things. Like the very first time I ever did a transaction, I think it was like a Uniswap transaction for some like weird shitcoin, and I didn't realize anything about like gas fees or transaction
Hmm.
fees, and I happened to like do the swap on like a really high gas day, and like
Oh,
in hindsight I discovered that like, oh wow, that transaction cost me like $50, which is insane.
yeah.
um so like for me, I learned by honestly like just diving headfirst into it and being willing to fail. Like I kind of viewed it as a little bit of a personal development expense. Like I'm willing to like lose some money on this because it's going to help me like learn and grow it. That's not to say that you have to have money to learn it. I don't think that's the case at all. Um, but for me, like I just started diving in, just reading a lot of articles about the topic. I started listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, just really soaking it all in. But also, Twitter was like a really big key elemental
Hmm.
piece for me. Like I started following people who were talking about this space. I started following NFT artists who were doing things here because I have sort of an art background and I enjoy art. And then from there, I just started following people that they were following and connecting with more people and just listening in on the conversation. And honestly, just asking questions that in hindsight probably seemed really simple and easy. But um, just getting plugged into like Twitter and following those people was really instrumental because I think it was back in maybe February that I followed Mike, who's the one of the co-founders of Rainbow. I followed
Hmm.
him, I think, because of someone who retweeted him, and I just sort of started following along. I had no idea what he was talking about for the longest period of time because it was so like foreign to me. Um, but over time, I started understanding it because I started listening more and paying closer attention. And whenever he would post something or someone would post something I didn't understand, I just Googled it and tried my best to like understand maybe a little bit of what they were talking about.
Right.
And then eventually over time, like I started making actual friends through Twitter, and I got into some group DMs that were about NFTs, and kept doing that. I joined Discord groups that were in the space, and
What does your Discord server look like? Like, is it out of control?
it is out of control. Yeah, I was just yeah. I mean, I'm in like I trimmed it down recently. I was in something like crazy, like 50 different servers, but now I think I'm
Hmm.
down to like 25. But yeah, it was just immersing myself in it and going really deep and just being willing to like look like a total noob because
Hmm.
that's I think that's one of people's hangups is they're afraid to look like they don't know what they're doing, and and I think that holds them back to some degree because it makes them not ask questions that maybe they should be asking.
Right.
Um, but anyways, make a long story short, I think it was back in March. I ended up quitting my job at a traditional tech company, just because I realized it really wasn't fulfilling me. It wasn't doing what I wanted to be doing, and I didn't intend to get into crypto, but I was becoming more and more interested in it personally and starting to do
Hmm.
more with it on the side. And one day when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do next, I was like, I have some connections in the space now just from tweeting and following people. I'm just gonna tweet about it and tell people, hey, I'm open to work. I would be interested in like getting into this space professionally. Um, and enough people just started tweeting that and resharing it for me that I got,
Wow.
7 or 8 interviews within the first, 7 days and a couple of job offers. And I ended up direct messaging Mike from Rainbow because I started seeing that there was a good demand for the kind of work that
Hmm.
I could do. And I was like, if there's one app in this space or one like company in this space that I would love to work for, it's definitely with Rainbow because it was my first wallet. It was like one of my first experiences with crypto, and it kind of was like the thing that made me fall in love with it. So
Hmm.
I knew that I could do a really good job of helping promote it, helping new people get onboarded and get excited about it, and provide the support people needed because I went through it myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just direct messaged Mike really simply and said, "Hey, he was following me, and I said, I love your app. I would be very interested in joining y'all's team if that's something that y'all were interested in." They were somewhat familiar with my work because I, tweeted about it a lot and
Yeah.
just was very open about everything. So openness and transparency, I feel like, is key. Like you have to be willing to sort of put yourself out there.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate to that after kind of being on Twitter for like 10 years and not tweeting at all. And then
Yes.
crypto being the first time that I've actually
Yeah. I made
kind
my
of like,
Twitter 10 years ago too and didn't
yeah.
really do very much good with it for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, I saw Mike's tweet, which was that he was going to like ape into a job with a job offer,
Yeah.
and kind of snatch you away from, one of those 7 or 8 companies that interviewed you or protocols that interviewed you.
Yeah.
I thought that was so hilarious. I think it also just kind of speaks to like the vibe and the nature of people in this space, which is
Yes.
so different. And I think, like you said, it's less of a distinction between the personal and professional, but kind of in the best way.
Yeah, no, I loved the hiring process at all the places I interviewed with. It was very informal. There were like most of the places I didn't even formally apply to. In fact, Rainbow, the whole hiring process was conducted over a Twitter DM. Like I never once like really emailed them or anything. We got on like Google Hangout because of a DM. The whole thing was over, Twitter DMs, which is really non-traditional. But it was really like seamless and fun, and
Hmm.
it made me like feel like I had a bit more like level of trust in the people I was going to be working with because
Hmm.
they when you're working in traditional tech environments, there's a lot of not like walls, but like there's a lot of like hoops you have to jump through, or there's a lot of kind of rigidity there. But it was really interesting that I could go from one evening direct messaging Mike to 2 or 3 days later on a group DM conversation with him and the other founders, and going back and forth asking questions and sending them examples of the work I had done. um, yeah, I've been I think I was skeptical of like the non-traditional side of the crypto space, but the more
Right.
I get into it, the more I've discovered like the non-traditionality of it is really a strength. Like there's like
Totally.
there's always like trade-offs to it, but I feel like the pros far outweigh any cons.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a feature, not a bug. If
Yes.
you've had
Yeah,
really
no,
positive
totally.
experiences with it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so,
it
oh,
allows
sorry.
people, I think it also allows people like who are outsiders to get into it a little bit
Hmm.
easier in the sense of with the traditional hiring process, a lot of the times you're submitting a resume and people are like scouring through these resumes, looking at applicable experience. And if I had submitted my resume to a company like Rainbow, I don't know if I would have ever like gotten an interview because like I have no crypto experience in my past
Hmm.
at all. They would have looked at my resume and be like, this guy is from South Carolina. He didn't come from some great school. Like he doesn't have all these accolades. So I don't know. I find it to be like a way that you can get in easier if you're not like you just have to show that you are valuable and can do like the work that's needed.
Yeah. And so I know that you have done a lot of posts on Mirror and you went through the right race. And in terms of non technical people coming into the space, and being able to highlight their kind of participation and their learning in the space, what are some other ways that you might recommend non technical people could kind of highlight that about themselves and their
Yeah,
journey?
no, totally. I mean, I think pretty much any time that you can find a place that crypto people or people in the space are congregating,
Hmm.
you can find a way to get involved or plugged in somehow, even if you're non-technical. Like one of the pretty much all the discords that groups that I join, there's a lot of developers on there, but there's also a lot of needs for things like I mean, the simplest thing, needs for like people to help, moderate some of these communities or like, develop FAQs or even things like, even like making memes. Like if you're good at making memes, like I did that some. Like it was just I got involved with projects that I really enjoyed, and kind of like when I got my first ENS domain, one of the things that I did was like write a Twitter thread that explained to people like how they could do it too. Like, so I think, from my perspective, because like I am a communicator and a marketer and a content creator, I sort of like tried to find the ways that I could most naturally fit in. And for me,
Hmm.
that was like noticing that there wasn't a lot of helpful content out there. There was some, but like a lot of the times it wasn't like written for non-technical people. So
Hmm.
like for the ENS domain thing, like I found lots of explainers that help people try to do it, but they were all written in a way that to me as like a normal person, as an outsider, it didn't really like click with me and resonate. So I wanted to try to like do my version of it. So I think that's another
Yeah.
thing is like people who come into the space, they might feel intimidated because like, oh, maybe everything's been done before. But I think that really is, going to be an element of change that has to happen in the industry because there is a lot of work that has been done by technical people that now kind of needs to be redone in some ways. Because if, and this is not a knock on a developer or anything, but like, if a developer is trying to play all the roles within a company of like customer support and education and community building on top of developing, that's a really hard thing to be doing and juggling.
Right.
And so usually like there's an abundance of ways. Like like if you're if you're a customer support person, there's a lot that you can do. Like if if you're a community person, especially like crypto is like community is like at the heart of pretty much everything that goes on in this space. I feel like community building is kind of like this sort of trendy, buzzy thing that is really popular right now. But the crypto space, I feel like naturally had community at its core before all that because
Hmm.
a lot of this stuff is like open source or it requires many people to help make it possible. And so like naturally just like people group together to get stuff done naturally in this space. And now there's a need for like people to come in and be like, help us like actually moderate this Discord server and make it work for people. And so yeah, it's a lot of work though. Like don't get me wrong, it's not an easy thing to do.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of ways you can get involved. Really help. Like I don't know. I think being creative about it is important. Like you really just have to like take like some of your inhibitions down and be willing to like try new things is like the key to it.
Absolutely. That reminds me of kind of the saying, like it's simple, but it's not easy. So it's really, obvious. It's kind of like
Yeah,
create content, whether it's like replying to tweets or a Twitter thread or,
yeah,
yeah, replying to someone in a Discord. But yeah, it's not, it can be time consuming and it there is like this potential to be like always on in crypto. Obviously
yes, yeah,
time has lost all sense of meaning in this space. When you're talking
uh-huh.
about February, I was like,
It feels like a
when
year
was
ago.
that? When was it? It was a year ago, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
and so but I think when there's I don't know, when it feels like fun and it still feels like there is, so much fun around the space, and kind of no matter what your interests are, or what skill set you're bringing to the space, hopefully people can find, their version of fun in it, and just make the most of that pocket.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's so cool. And so, tell us a little bit about your role at Rainbow and Rainbow, um, because yeah, I'm really
Yep.
excited, and I'm a huge. Wallets are one of those things where I think, like you mentioned, because they are a bridge to the space, and they're often people's first experience with the space is through a wallet. Um, I think they are so important in terms of adoption and just coloring that lens that you can't deny that it goes on to color someone's experience for potentially a really long time.
Yes.
So yeah, tell us about Rainbow.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, wallets, they play like such a pivotal role in like the
Mm-hmm.
crypto space. And to your point, like people's first impressions of this space are going to matter a lot, and it will, like, I know for me personally, I tried to sort of like dabble in it and get into it maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I immediately got turned off to it and didn't want to do anything else because of my initial impressions of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that I like many years later I was willing to try it again and not let that totally turn me off to it. But I do very much think of that, like with the work we're doing at Rainbow, of we are going to be like that person's first experience with crypto, and we want to try to make it the most like easy, simple, fun, and enjoyable as possible. Like one of the things we try to do is make a wallet that is going to feel very friendly and welcoming, and not something that is going to feel super technical or
Mm-hmm.
complicated. And like there's definitely trade-offs with that. Like one of the things that that means is we might not be at the cutting edge of having all the latest features that like the super technical people might always be wanting, but we do, we make sure that like when we add stuff to the product that like it's going to help people, it's going to help the ecosystem, it's going to make sense to people and actually like get them more involved and more interested. Um, but Rainbow, like the reason why I wanted to come work here is just like of all the different wallets that I tried when I was trying to get started, like I would go onto the App Store and I would search, crypto wallet or Ethereum wallet, and none of them, I don't know, like they all seemed either kind of like scammy or weird
Yes.
or like technical, or like I just don't know if I can trust this. Um, Something about the vibe that Rainbow gave off was very like, I don't know, friendly and welcoming, and felt kind of like my personality. Um, and so it's like I don't know if I could say like Rainbow is for everyone, but I definitely think that like Rainbow is for a lot of people that might not might be turned off by a lot of other wallets and protocols in the space. And so we want to like help be people's introduction into this space. So one of the things like I was hired to do and that I'm actively working on is building out lots of content and education
Mm-hmm.
and things that are going to speak to like more normal everyday people and help them get into this kind of thing, using like language and like analogies and things they can actually understand and relate to. And so that's one of the things I'm focused first and foremost over the next like 3 or 4 months is when I joined Rainbow, I had a one-page website with nothing on it hardly except a link to the App Store. There were no
Wow.
FAQs, there were no like educational guides. There was like literally nothing. And so like they've been able to find a lot of success like with barely any customer education or like guides or anything, which I think says a lot about the product itself,
Yeah.
because people were able to like intuitively understand a lot of it. Not
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say it's not to say that there's lots of things we can improve, but like I from an outsider's perspective, when I was thinking about which companies I wanted to join, one of the reasons like Rainbow attracted me is like I got a sense that with with like with like a very simple minimal product, they were able to attract a lot of people and use it without having to like have all this explanation behind it. And so
Yeah.
now I feel like that gives me like a really solid foundation to be able to come in and then build off of and provide like all that extra education and support and knowledge. Um, so yeah, I'm very like excited to be at the forefront of like the wallet ecosystem and being able to like be one of those people that helps like the next, million people get into the
Mm-hmm.
system. Like I'm just so excited to like help normal everyday people like get more involved and understand these things without feeling intimidated by it. Like the questions I get asked every day, I always hear like a sense within people's voices of like, I'm kind of scared to ask this question, or I
Mm-hmm.
just don't understand what crypto is or what blockchain is. And I really just want to be the person that like makes them feel like they don't need to be embarrassed or like feel weird by the fact they don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm very excited about being able to do that at Rainbow. I feel like it's the perfect place to do it.
Absolutely. I think, when I've talked to friends and family about crypto, normally the kind of text with a link to a wallet is the first thing that you send to someone, right? And so I think it makes a difference. And I really like the idea that Rainbow has personality, and while it isn't, might not be for everyone, I think that it's in contrast to maybe just like a purely technical, more kind of corporate wallet,
Yes, yeah,
which
corporate, yeah.
yeah, I guess that's like when
Yeah.
I think of, even just like color schemes and
Yes.
like typical wallets versus rainbow, and you're like, okay, there's some personality here,
Yep.
and and that is really humanizing. I think is the other thing with crypto is it can feel,
Yes.
there are all sorts of things going on, but so it can feel really like developer centric, obviously
Yeah.
because it is, but it can also feel very scammy, like you said. Levels of trust really sway from end to end on the spectrum, and so that experience of just like downloading Rainbow on your phone and it feeling like a safe space,
Yeah, no,
I think.
totally. Yeah, I mean I don't know, I think honestly one of my biggest passions in this space is making everything feel a bit more accessible and
Mm-hmm,
relatable. And I think, we're seeing that in a variety of ways, like from providing more support and knowledge and content to people, but also like just trying to highlight like this space. There is a place for other people in this space that you know might not see themselves in it right now
mm-hmm,
immediately. Like I think that's been one of my biggest passions. Is 3 or 4 years ago when I first tried getting into the space, I got turned off by it because I just didn't really see people in this space that like I could relate to or felt like the kind
mm-hmm,
of people that like I don't know that were like me. And so um obviously there were some people back then, but there wasn't as many as there are now. And so I'm very passionate about like helping more and more people like get into the space. The whole cliche of like diversity inclusion, like people use that phrase a lot, but I do think that like it's something that this space needs more of. And I
mm-hmm.
want to try to do my best to make sure that like we we can make this community a lot more opening and welcoming. And I think it's going to be like kind of hard at first for some people because I think people do get like kind of entrenched in like the way things have been for the past 5 or 6 years. And
Yeah.
but the way I view it is honestly like everyone in this space, even the most technical people, like at the heart of it, we want to see mass adoption. We want to see this grow and
Mm-hmm.
become like this big global thing. And so like at the core, like that means that we need to branch out and make sure that like this can be for everyone truly and not just for like the people that have been here for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it's funny when you maybe analogize it to something that we experience in real life. It would almost be like if you were in a town or a city and only say like it was only inhabited by architects and builders and interior designers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're the creators of the space of the infrastructure, say.
Right.
But you really need like that diversity of, you need like the pizza shop
Yes.
and the 7-Eleven or bodega or whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, there are so many parts to like a thriving ecosystem where humans are involved. And so I feel like, okay, the space is definitely filled out in terms of being built, but there's obviously new infrastructure going up all the time.
Yeah.
And now it's just like we can start to like slowly bring the masses in, and so yeah, that's a
Yeah, I mean
I'm gonna think about it like that because
from
then yeah, diversity and the breadth of kind of human experience, it makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I love I mean I do really like that analogy you use because I think from like from like a career-minded person's perspective, if you're not a developer or technical person, like I honestly think you could look at this space as like this town that was built by a bunch of architects, and
Hmm.
there's no coffee shop, there's no
Yeah.
bookstore. Like, I really do think that you can think of it that way and be like, okay, wow, there's just a bunch of architects here. Like, how can I come in and
Hmm.
provide something that is very needed here? I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, and I think that accurately describes it. Um, I think the trick is like you do have to, to some degree, think like you do have to try your best to like think about. You can't really put yourselves in the architect's shoes, but you do have to sort of like think about, like, wonder, like, okay, how are they going to perceive this stuff, and like how can I try my best to relate to them.
Hmm.
And I think, it's a testament to the team at Rainbow that they, I think, while they are a lot of like technical minded people, like, I think that without me having to do very much, I think that they internally saw and knew that like they needed people that were going to be able to help go broader than just technical stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm very excited and kind of bullish about the town opening up and lots more people flooding in.
Yeah, awesome. And so with Rainbow, something I really like to do is go wallet diving.
Yes.
And is that anyone else or is it just me? It
No,
it
it's
can
me.
like send your creep factor like to 100, but I've never admitted that before. But anyways,
Yeah,
but
same.
so I love this kind of aspect of like especially like NFT diving because I think it's incredible how connected you can feel to someone behind like a wallet address or a wallet owner just by looking at the NFTs
Yes.
that they own. And so, how does
Hmm.
that space and that kind of feature feel to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think NFTs and sort of digital art are like the thing that excites me the most about the space, even more than like the financial aspects of it.
Hmm.
I grew up, you know, loving the idea of collectibles and like artwork, whether it was like Pokemon cards or,
Yep.
Neopets or like all this kind of stuff that you could do. And I think it's interesting because I feel like for the longest time that kind of stuff has been relegated to like video games or just like things that maybe some people, you know, it, I think that what we're seeing is like people realizing that digital things have a lot of value when
Hmm.
traditionally like people just haven't really like. I think internally most folks understand that like the digital world is really valuable, but for some reason there's still this mental leap that people have to make to realize like, oh yeah, like something that is not tangible and physical in my hands can actually have value and be, worth obtaining. So like with, NFTs, like Rainbow, one of the things we try to do is like make the NFT experience really great.
Yeah.
um, and to your point, like I love going and looking up my friends' wallet addresses and seeing like what NFTs are in their wallet, or even just random people that I meet on Twitter. Like, everyone has their, like, a lot of people have their ENS domains as their usernames, and I'll go onto Rainbow and I'll plug in someone's name
Hmm.
into there and see what kind of NFTs they have. And it's really fun because like sometimes I'll plug one in and I'll see a bunch of NFTs that are in there that like I recognize or maybe I even own, and I'm like, oh, this person likes moon cats and I like moon cats, and
Yeah.
I feel like we would get along because of that. So it's kind of like, it's in some ways it's kind of like, I don't know. I think it can facilitate like getting to know someone a lot faster if you can sort
Hmm.
of get like a sense for what kind of collectibles or like artwork that they like. But it can also be like a fun, I don't know if like gamification is the right word, but like there's a whole lot of interesting like fun projects that are going on that make the idea of like these digital like goods fun. Like you can trade them, you can collect them, you can use them to play games. And like I mean, there's so many creative uses for it. Like I saw someone the other day who purchased an NFT of like a song that an artist recorded, and them purchasing it gave them like the rights to like the royalties of that song or something. So like, there's a lot of like interesting things that can be done. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I love NFTs and wallet diving, and it does kind of feel a little odd at first because like in the traditional world, you would never look into someone's wallet or purse. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that might be a hang up for some people initially because they're like, wait a minute, anyone can look inside my wallet and see what's going on. Um, and that's true to some degree. Like if you like, I think a lot of people who get deeper and deeper into crypto, like you can start having multiple wallets. And like me personally, I have several different wallets, one of which I have decided to be very public about. And I
Hmm.
attached a username to it so anyone can go on and look it up. Um, and so I think there's some still like some interesting like norms and things that we're sort of learning like how to build out. And like I think that's going to be instrumental in like how we educate people too, is like figuring
Hmm.
out like how can we let them know that like anyone can look in their wallet if they have the
Yeah.
address, but also like not to get too freaked out about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is something you need to consider though. Like if privacy is a big, thing to you, then you need to make sure not to share your address with anyone because anyone can look inside of it.
Yeah, it just made me think when we were talking about wallet diving. So there is this like wildly popular blog that led to a startup. So the blog is called Into the Gloss, and the startup that it led to was Glossier or Glossier, which is like a woman's skincare and makeup. Well, not just women's, but a skincare and
Yeah.
makeup brand. And it's funny because the whole premise behind that blog, which was so popular, is looking in people's makeup cupboards or bathroom cupboards and seeing, what skincare they
Right.
use because
Yes.
everyone wants to know, like, what have you got on
Right.
your
What?
face?
Yes.
Um,
How do you get your
and
skin
so,
looking so good?
exactly. And so I can almost imagine like an into the gloss, but into the wallet kind of situation
Yes.
where, yeah, you do learn so much about a person. I think as well, the fact that it's art and kind of NFTs as opposed to maybe the signaling that we're used to with platforms like LinkedIn. So it might be kind of like organizations and
Uh-huh.
um, hobbies, but you can have affiliations to organizations that really don't kind of touch an intimate part of you. But
Yes,
art is a little bit different,
it
right?
is.
Because if you're, especially if you're spending crypto on it, then there is some amount of value that you see in that, and that is reflect, and then how it reflects you and what it says to you is, yeah, kind of a peek into someone's
Yeah.
soul, maybe.
Yeah, no, totally. I often like when I'm going through people's wallets and looking at them, like I often do like wonder to myself, like, I wonder what it was about this particular like NFT that caused this person to buy it. Like what is like because I come from sort of an art background and in the art world there's always lots of like conversations about what is art, what is good art,
Hmm.
and people have lots of different perceptions of like things that they like. And I really like I don't like all art, but like there's some like but I believe most things are art. And so I love like even if I don't like someone's NFTs, I like personally like my aesthetic is not related to their aesthetic. I love like asking questions to people of like, okay, tell me like what is the story behind this? Like
Hmm.
why do you like this collectible, or like what is and often there's a really interesting story. Like a lot of the
Hmm.
NFTs that are in my wallet, like if you go in them, like I could tell you some very interesting stories about all of them. And I honestly, that's been a kind of in the back of my head, like an idea for like doing maybe like blogs or content or something of like featuring some, like I know back in I think it was many years ago that like, I think it was The Verge had this series on their website where called What's in Your Bag. And they would like
Yeah.
interview people and show like what was in their bags and like the
This is still
stuff.
a huge thing. There are like YouTube channels dedicated to this. It's
Yeah.
really,
So
I don't, this is like Cribs is an architectural digest, right? Like everyone just wants to see behind like the
yes.
door or inside the
Yeah.
bag.
So
Yes.
I would like, I think it would be really cool to start doing that for crypto as well. Like, I would
Hmm.
love to know, like, what's in your wallet? Tell me the stories behind it, or even maybe like doing some kind of like interesting, like, I don't know, palm reading. Like, let me read your personality based off of
Oh,
what I
yeah.
see in there, I think that could be really interesting too.
That would be so funny if you could see someone's wallet and then you had to kind of like figure out who the person was
Oh
and like
yeah. Oh, you could have like 5 or 6 different people and
yeah.
imagine that would be a fun game too.
I
That's
think this is
interesting.
the potential with wallets though, in terms of being connected to us and what we value being more than currency.
Yeah.
Because this is like a pretty new frontier that this
Yeah.
technology has unlocked. And so I always talk about this example, which is, and I think it can be kind of, I think there's like a one-to-one version with NFTs, but when I get out a book from the library and there are like 82 other people who have a hold on the book, and all I want, and this is just like literally my library just up the road, and it's 82 people in that library have a hold on it, and I think, oh my goodness, I wish I could meet you in real life,
Yeah.
because I'm like sitting here in my room feeling
Uh-huh.
really alone, like no one is
Yes.
interested in this thing. And
Yes.
it's kind of the same with NFTs, right? You're like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, there are how many thousands of people who also went
Yes.
crazy for mooncats
Right.
when they
No, I
resurfaced.
love that like I can go on to like Etherscan or OpenSea and I can look at all the NFTs that I have and I can immediately go on and kind of figure out who else also owns them. Or like I was playing there's this blockchain game that is in development right now called Dark Forest that I started playing last month. And it's like a multiplayer online real-time game and so like you meet people in this game and some of the people like have like, everyone has their wallet address
Mhm.
listed so you can go on and like you can see those people on the blockchain. Some of them have like linked their Twitter accounts to it, and so like as I was playing this game, like it wasn't just a game, like I was able to actually like meet people through it. Like at the beginning of it, like I got it like it's a space exploration game, and I got into like a space battle with someone else in this game that I did not know who they were because like it just some other person on the blockchain, and I was able to like go on and figure out who they were, and I reached out to them on Twitter and asked them for a truce, and we stopped fighting, and we ended up like teaming up, and so like we sort of developed a friendship over Twitter just through this game because we met each other on the blockchain, which I don't know, that's really exciting to me to wonder like how much further that's going to go out. And every one of these projects in this space pretty much has a community sort of naturally forming around it, which I
Mhm.
love. Like with Mooncats, like I can, I'm an admin of that Discord server, so I can go in there and connect with thousands of other people that love those things also. And I don't know, it's so much fun. That's why I think a lot of people miss out. People who look from the outside into the crypto space, there can be sort of like a negative perception of it sometimes because it can feel like it's just all about money or like finance or all this technical stuff. But there's so much like interesting things going on the inside that like if you do give it a chance, like there's probably something here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have definitely done things, even just in terms of, I wouldn't say like hardcore gaming, but just like playing games that I haven't done since I was a kid.
Yes.
And what's really interesting for me is that I've realized that I've really been lacking kind of that community, just where the game is like what brings you together, and you don't really need another signal to kind of like get in the room.
Yes.
You can just like play the game, and then it's so great because once you've played the game together, the game is what you have in common. And
Yes.
so yeah, right, you can just like be friends and like, yeah, we meet here and we play. And the
Yeah.
kind of playing aspect and gaming aspect of crypto, um, even though I'm really new to it, I really enjoy it, and I feel again like it's if you're just try to be open-minded, there's still a way to kind of participate even for the least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much not much of like a gamer, but like
Mhm.
I to your point, like I feel like a lot of the things that are happening in the space have made me sort of revisit things from my past that like I
Mhm.
enjoyed, and I discover like, oh, there's lots of new things that are happening around this thing, like that make me want to try to get back into it. So I don't know. I find that like kind of like with the internet, like I think people I think people should sort of start looking at crypto as like it's kind of like the internet. Like it's not this one thing; it's this giant thing
Mhm.
that can facilitate so many other things. Um,
Yes.
and so if you start looking at it like that, I think that's the analogy that clicks for most people because everyone can relate to the internet and what it's done to like society, for good and bad. But like honestly, that's what motivates me to like become more of a participant in it because if we can have more people participating in the ecosystem that want to see good things come out of it, then the odds that good things are going to come out of it are going to start increasing if more people that have good intentions come into the space, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see how that plays out. And um, so, with kind of NFTs, just like pulling on that thread a little bit more, and maybe your uh, art background, what kind of really excites you about the space that maybe didn't feel possible for before, or it feels like there is a new horizon here? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like one of the things that really excited me initially about it was I for a long time, my career sort of started in graphic design before I got into marketing, and for a long time, like I enjoyed making digital art. I started making physical art, and I started realizing that like for a time I actually like was making physical art and painting, and I would go to some art shows and I would sell some of my work. And the thing that was always difficult about it is there just was a lot of like non-art tasks that went into like
Mm-hmm.
selling art physically is really difficult, because if you go to a trade show, if you go to like an art show, you have to like bring all these supplies and set up like this display, and you have to like do all this stuff that is really like time consuming. um, and if you don't want to do that, then you have to like decide, okay, well maybe I could sell my art online. And even then it's then you have to deal with like, okay, I got to ship this art to people, and shipping and packaging art is just a nightmare. Like it's not fun. I've done it. It's I don't know. It just requires a lot of time and energy that I think most artists they don't want to have to do it, and it can be difficult to like facilitate all that. But also like there's just so many like wildly talented digital artists that the
Mm-hmm.
only ways like the major ways they've been able to sort of like make money off of what they do is either selling prints or merchandise that has their artwork on it, which to some people cannot like some artists never want to go that route because it feels too consumeristic, or like
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't fulfill them. And then other artists have to go the route of like, I'm going to make art on the side while
Mm-hmm.
also doing like freelancing or contracting work with like companies. And so this new ability to make scarce digital art, I think, is really exciting, because it means that for the first time digital artists can do what physical artists did. And that's just like, it might not be as easy to understand if you're not an artist, but like that's just such a like mind-blowing concept that like that's now possible. And so I don't know, I've dabbled in NFTs myself some. And while I personally am not a full-time artist or want to like go deep into that myself, I like immediately saw the value of it as I started to
Mm-hmm.
dabble in it. And I'm just like, I'm so excited for all these really talented people who are digital artists to be able to finally like make money off of the hard work that they do, and like
Yes.
also be rewarded and appreciated by like collectors who might not have otherwise, like prior to this, been it's just crazy to me that now we're seeing these major art houses like Sotheby's and you know actually auctioning off this scarce digital art. Like that's huge. That's to me is a signal that like lots of people try to talk about how NFTs are dead now because like this first initial like hype went down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like no, it was an initial hype and it's died down a little bit, but like there still is under the surface, it's still growing day by day. And I don't know, I'm very excited to see like how more and more artists can use it to find new ways of like honing their craft. I think it's really exciting. Not everyone's going to be able to like
Mm-hmm.
become super wealthy and make it big, but like that was never the case in the traditional art world either. Like the vast majority of artists never really do make this smash giant success that makes them tons of money. So like for me, like a lot of people have pointed to NFT art as like, oh, it's a scam because so many people get into it and they don't make money. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's how all art has always been. Like most people don't make
Yeah.
much money from their art
It's
to begin
actually
with.
like almost all creative, like the majority of creative pursuits. I feel like
Yes.
a lot of people get into it, and then
Yeah.
the expectation is that you won't make a lot of money
Yeah.
because the chances
But like
are
in
so
my
slim.
mind, this like all this new technology that's coming out that is enabling this is to me it just means that more people will have a chance at that and will be able
Hmm.
to like shoot their shot with it almost that might not
Yeah,
have been in the past.
yeah, totally. And then the fact that it's online and it opens up, just like the
Yes.
internet, like you said, like the opportunity to like find your people wherever they are in the world, as long as they're online.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. And I think the fact that NFTs, like you said, with the Sotheby's auctions, um, that is a pretty strong case for NFTs as like a very strong bridge to mass adoption. Do you kind of
Yes.
think that in terms of the different and because like you said, we're NFTs as well as digital art, there are so many different you know different mechanisms and features you can add to them,
Yes.
things that almost daily someone is coming out with a new
Uh-huh.
thing to attach to an NFT. So if it's not finance, right? If the bridge to
Yeah.
crypto for a lot of people isn't finance, what does that look like as NFT being the bridge to crypto?
Yeah. I mean honestly I don't know if this particular project that I'm thinking of is going to be most people's gateway into it, but to me, this project sort of highlights what's possible, and that I'm thinking of like this Mooncats project that I really like. It's
Hmm.
like it's this like these pixelated cat artworks, and like there's there's only 25,000 of them, and people can collect them, and initially that's all you could do is like oh you could there was sort of like a narrative story arc behind them and you could rescue these cats from the moon and there was some like gamification behind that initially but now like they're taking it to a whole nother level and they're starting to
Hmm.
add all these new things that to me it reminds me of my past of like playing these games like Neopets or like RuneScape or these older games I played as a kid and it's they're layering things on top of it like now you can now you're going to be able to like play games with these cats or you're going to be able to like make your own like accessories or art that can be attached to the cat or um, there's even ways like right now that you can make money using these cats like one of the things that I am doing currently is I there's a protocol that I think it's called NFT 20 that um, you can take you can take some of your cats and like deposit them into these like smart contracts and then be rewarded for having your cat in like the liquidity locked up in this
Right.
pool. So like there's some interesting ways that like you can own these things and actually like be rewarded for it. Like I'm very interested in like people like during the pandemic people loved like that game Animal Crossing like
Hmm.
both kids and adults were playing this game called Animal Crossing. Um, and I like to think about like, in the future, like games like Animal Crossing, they might be decentralized to the point that they were like you can get items and fun things within one game and be able to take them to a totally different game that someone else makes and use them there. So like a lot of Gen Z and kids these days like they're playing Fortnite and these other games where they can buy things within the game, but they can only use them in that one game and they can't take them anywhere else. And I think NFTs are going to potentially allow people to like actually have all these digital goods that can actually serve them into the future as well. So I'm very excited about what could be done there.
Yeah, absolutely. I I think that Mooncats for me was really interesting because I got to the point where I was about to like rescue 6 Mooncats, and then do you remember the price of gas at that point in time? Because I
Yeah.
clearly don't know how to like program my transaction so that gas doesn't kill me, but it was like like $1,000 to $2,000 of gas. But I thought that it was really interesting because the whole time I didn't really realize it was an NFT. Like it just felt like a game right up until the end, and I thought that was really interesting because it's not even say like that digital art experience where you're purchasing the kind of you're going through like a normal, almost like an e-commerce funnel. But with Mooncats, I thought it was so interesting because I didn't know where I was. Like I was having so much fun that I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
pressing the space bar and like hoping I would get the cutest mooncat.
Well, the interesting thing
uh,
about that is like it's kind of sad to some degree because that project like kind of got forgotten, so many years
mhm,
ago, and so the experience of it being rediscovered at the beginning of this year, like to your point, it really wasn't optimized for most people to actually be able to do it. It was
mhm.
like you did have to kind of be able to interact with the contract directly, and if you didn't do it just right, you would see like that $2,000 fee, which was crazy. Like you had to make sure you input it correctly. And I think the gas, like if you did it, you had to go through some hoops, but like you could get it to being like $15 or something. But like to me, that showed that like there could be like these really interesting ways. Like if you prepare it and launch it correctly, there could be like this really fascinating like game or community. But I'm really bullish around the idea of like how can a how can you reward a community with like
Mhm.
fun projects like that? Like you're a part of an existing community. How could you make like instead of having, and we're thinking about this somewhat internally at Rainbow, like instead of what if you had, instead of like company swag or like community swag or like merchandise,
Oh my gosh.
you had like
I love
NFTs that were like
yes.
exclusive to your community? Like wouldn't that be so
Yes.
cool?
That would be so cool. I'm so excited about that. I hope that there is like a proliferation of that because I would really like that. I actually think about this, something that I think about is, so like kids' birthdays are notorious for just like junk. It's just like, you get a whole lot of stuff from like family and people that it's just like it sits in a space for
Yes.
2 weeks and then it gets thrown out. And so
Yes.
I was just thinking, like, what if, just like company swag, like instead of birthday presents, kids, we're
Yes.
gifting kids like NFTs and things like
Yes.
that, and just to reflect like a time and place. I think NFTs are really interesting in terms of marking a
Yes.
journey, like even if it's your journey into crypto. And even with Mooncats, I felt like that was one of the first times I went to Etherscan and dug around,
Same.
um,
Yes. I'd never done it
and kind
before.
of yeah, and tried to figure stuff out. And I was like, am I copying this thing or am I copying that thing? So, just as a learning exercise, I
Yes.
thought it was really interesting because I didn't even, there are two types of learning. And I know that gamification can go really far one way, but it felt like such an accessible kind of way to use gamification to
Uh-huh.
help
Teach
people
people.
learn when they didn't realize they were doing it. And yeah, and it's
Yes.
funny because I went through that experience. Yeah, my confidence grew in terms of navigating Etherscan and looking at contracts and things like that. And so,
Yep.
still don't know what I'm doing, but I feel more confident. So,
Yeah, well, I also like that you do get kind of rewarded for those things. Like I think it's really interesting this side like Pope badges, those POAP things, like
mhm,
proof of participation. I think it's really interesting that like I think that that's going to be a big thing of like
mhm,
having you get these like these like temporary, or not temporary, but like you're going to get these like NFTs that are tied to events that like prove that you were involved, you were a part of this thing, and it kind of like a milestone that is attached to your wallet now. Like even
mhm.
I like when I quit my last job, I actually like I minted an NFT that was specifically like tied to me quitting that job. Like it's gonna sound crazy, but
Wow.
I like made a piece of artwork that was like that used my resignation letter in it, and I made an artwork around it and I minted it. And I don't know, like I do like this idea of like, and I don't, I like, I probably won't do this, but I think at some point we're gonna see somebody like doing like something related to like getting married, like do like
Oh my
something on
God.
chain.
I was just thinking that when you were talking about the resignation letter. That's really funny. I was just thinking, oh my goodness, an NFT wedding registry is gonna get so much money thrown at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very interested to see like what could happen there. Like I think people will, I think people tend to think of like there's a little bit of criticism out on the market right now about NFTs and sort of the environment and how it impacts the environment. And I think like as soon as, and the reason like I'm here in Ethereum is I believe that like Ethereum is going to be the best use case,
Mhm.
like the best blockchain that is going to be adopted and that in the long term is actually going to be very environmentally friendly. And I honestly think that, having more digital goods, and to your point about like kids' birthday parties and things, I honestly think it's going to like in some ways be maybe even more environmentally friendly in the long run, because
Hmm.
maybe some of this stuff that typically, we get all these t-shirts or things that
Hmm.
like just end up like collecting a lot of waste. Like I do wonder if a lot of that can sort of be offloaded onto like digital environments that are maybe a lot more environmentally friendly than all the like the supply chain stuff that goes into like producing this crap. So I don't know. I'm very interested in that too.
Yeah, that is something that I am very interested in. I think that, like you said, as you have kind of like generations that have grown up online and the value they put on digital goods is equal to, at least equal to the value
Yeah.
they put on physical goods.
Yes.
I think that then you have the potential to like completely change the consumption paradigm. And yeah, I'm excited to see what that means for the physical environment because I do believe that that kind of environmental impact aspect, it's at the it is top of mind for a lot of people in the space who are working
Mm-hmm.
on the technology, and
Yep.
so yeah, I'm
I think that's
hopeful and
I think that's a common misconception too. Like a lot of people on the
mm-hmm,
outside, I think, who are critical of like the environmental side, I don't think they realize like how much like the people inside of this space are thinking about it. Like
mm-hmm,
I don't know, it's very hard not to think about it. And I generally find that like most people are, I don't know, like one of the people that I know really well, like he's working on a project called Offsetra that is very like focused upon like the environmental aspect of blockchain. And I don't know, very to people listening, like I think there's lots going on here that like should
mm-hmm.
give you a lot of hope in that department.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Awesome. Okay, well, Jackson, thank you so much for talking to me today, and
Likewise.
I had so much fun.
Same, I did too. It was really great talking.
and, and we'll definitely put I'll put all of the links to Rainbow, and I'm gonna have to link Dame.eth so people can dive
Yeah,
into your
wallet
wallet and
dive.
look at all
Yeah,
your NFTs. I'm
do
gonna
it.
go look for that NFT, the resignation letter one, because that is such a cool idea. Yeah, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I'm really excited about like I don't know this project that you're doing, and I can't wait to meet the future guests of the show and the past ones. I'm excited to like learn more about it as I follow along as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise.